When I saw Atomfall at the Xbox showcase a year ago, my first thought was probably similar to yours. This looks like Fallout. The post-apocalyptic open-world exploration mixed with branching dialogue options and first-person combat. It's hard not to make that comparison. In an interview with IGN, art director Ryan Green at Rebellion said he knew the comparisons would be made, but quote, once you play the game, you realize it's not Fallout. I had to include this in my video because it perfectly describes my experience after 6 hours with the game. While it certainly does take inspiration with the overall premise being a post-apocalypse, Atomfall is more of a first-person mystery game to me. Sure, it's got combat, it's got skills, it's got looting, but the core of this experience is searching for clues. You're essentially an investigator trying to piece together what's going on and what you're gonna do about it. Along the way, you make friends and enemies, and you make tough choices. It's hard to define Atomfall by any one genre because it's doing a lot of different things and in its own unique way. But the through line here is this story, and that's what I've enjoyed the most about it. So let's dive in and take a look. Before we do, this video is sponsored by Rebellion. Atomfall is a brand new single-player, first-person action survival game developed by Rebellion, the studio behind Sniper Elite and Zombie Army. The game just launched on March 27th, 2025 and is now available on all platforms. Personally, I've been sucked in by the narrative, figuring out who to trust and how to navigate the various factions in this world. Play Atomfall on Game Pass, Xbox Series X and S, and Xbox One, PS5 and PS4, and PC via Steam or Epic Games Store now, using my links in the description or the pinned comment. You're awakened in a bunker by a scientist screaming in pain. He explains there was a nuclear disaster at the Windscale atom plant and you're stuck in the quarantine zone. He tells you to find the truth. Escape the quarantine zone and spread the truth of what really happened here. You take his keycard and step outside into Slatten Dale. A mysterious red telephone booth sits in the valley. The telephone inside begins ringing as you approach. You pick up the phone and hear this. Must die. This is the first 10 minutes of Atomfall, and I think it's really effective. Personally, I'm a sucker for conspiracy in a video game. It turns out the Windscale fire is a real event that happened in 1957. The reactors burned for 3 days and released radioactive fallout across the UK and Europe. It's considered the worst nuclear accident in the history of the United Kingdom. Atomfall is an alternate history version of that very real event. What if the government rushed in and put up walls to contain anyone or anything that was infected? What if the quarantine lasted for 5 years? What if there was more to the story than the government told us? This is the what if scenario the game places you in, and if that sounds at all interesting, I think you'll really like what this game has to offer. I call this a first-person mystery game because most of what you're doing here is gathering clues and information. The people you talk to, the places you visit, and the notes and audio logs you find lying around. They're all breadcrumbs that give you another piece to the overall puzzle of what's going on. Everything you find is kept in the investigation tab, which keeps track of every lead you can follow. And there's a lot of leads. I'm only 6 hours in and I've got at least a dozen separate story threads to pull on. While Rebellion has said there's not a main quest per se, I think they mean in a traditional linear sense. There is a main goal. It's to find the truth and escape the quarantine zone. But how you accomplish that task depends a lot on how you play this game. And there's a lot of variability. For example, you can kill everyone in Atomfall, every single NPC. That's right, even the innocent people walking around Wyndham Village. I decided to take a more diplomatic approach because it seems like I'll need to make friends in order to escape this place. Except for the druids in Casterfell Woods, I think I wiped out their entire population. As you're exploring, you'll meet and talk to a lot of people. Each person has an opinion on the zone, and some of them belong to a faction. The Protocol is a militaristic group of soldiers who hold Wyndham Village under martial law. They are no nonsense and won't tolerate anyone who doesn't follow their rules. On the other hand, the Druids are a religious faction who claim to hear voices in the soil and reject modern technology. The Outlaws are pretty much your generic bad guy gang who roam around the map and shoot anyone who gets too close. The Protocol and the Druids have a lot more going on than meets the eye, and to go into specifics would definitely be spoiler territory, but I'll just say I've already felt some satisfying payoffs by uncovering some of these factions' motives, and I have a feeling that the rabbit hole goes much deeper than what I've seen so far. A big part of this game is dialogue and talking to people. Each time you talk to a person, you're given a couple options along with the general vibe of the response. I sort of like this because sometimes when you pick choices in games, you don't realize what mood or tone you're giving off, and it makes their replies unpredictable. This makes it very clear, regardless of what you're saying, this is my intent. It's a nice quality of life feature that I have found helpful. Anytime you have a relevant piece of information you've discovered, you can bring it up in conversation to move the plot forward. And of course, there are some interesting choices to be made. Without spoiling anything specific, I found someone with a dead body at one point. I could decide whether to turn them in, spare them, or have them give me something in exchange for my silence. That felt satisfying, and I hope there's more choice and consequence as I continue to play this game. The world is divided into several regions, each with their own set of mysteries and faction presence. What connects them is the Interchange, this secret underground bunker which holds the quarantine in place. According to the scientist who woke you up, the truth lies inside this place, inside the Interchange. The problem is it's abandoned, and of course it has no power. You have to find atomic batteries to get it up and running again, which are valuable and scattered across the map. Now, the Interchange might be my favorite part of this world, which is funny because it's entirely underground and very dark, but there's something inherently interesting about unlocking these giant vault doors, dodging massive security robots and turrets, and reading notes about what the government was really doing down here. It's also not completely abandoned. There's some really dangerous areas below the surface that felt almost like a horror game to explore. But I also love Wyndham Village. It's this picturesque, quaint English village that's occupied by the Protocol. A voice on the intercom reminds everyone to stay in line or else. You can just tell there's so much boiling beneath the surface here, and it's very like George Orwell 1984 feeling. I'm excited to figure out like what's really going on with the people here. Like I said at the top, what's hooking me the most is this story. I want to figure out who keeps calling me at these phone booths in the zone with a creepy voice. I want to figure out what the government was doing and what they're hiding. I don't want to say much more than that to maintain the mystery for you guys, but if you take anything at all away from this video, it should be that mystery is at the heart of Atomfall. Also, like I mentioned at the top, Atomfall has a lot going on in terms of game mechanics. Rebellion calls this a first-person action survival game, and I'm not so sure I agree with that. I think this game has some survival mechanics. For example, crafting. You have to gather cloth and alcohol to make bandages in order to heal yourself. They recommended that I play on the survivor difficulty to get the true experience of this game, and I have died like a handful of times, mostly to these terrifying monsters called ferals. It also has some leftover ideas from the Sniper Elite series, like tracking your heart rate. If you sprint too much, then it becomes harder to aim. Maybe another reason they call this survival is because movement can feel a little bit stiff. Unless you get lucky, it's hard to wriggle yourself out of a tough fight. To me, it feels more by design though. They want you to commit to your decisions in combat or stealth. Speaking of combat, things are fairly basic here. You've got a few melee options to choose from, along with the ability to kick enemies away. Headshots kill instantly, so there's no bullet sponge enemies to worry about. You've also got throwing weapons, things like knives and grenades. There's a couple of different damage types like bleed damage, poison, and burning. Generally speaking, there is a combat sandbox to explore in this game, but it's not the main attraction. There's pistols, shotguns, rifles, pretty much your standard fare, but these don't really have stats on them other than high damage, average range, low fire rate, stuff like that. The reason I'm pointing this out is Atomfall isn't really trying to be an RPG where you loot as much stuff as possible and try to get the best gear. Of course, you can do that, but its focus is not really on the min-max progression that you feel in a game like Fallout. There are skills in this game, but there's no levels or experience gains. In fact, the only way to get new skills is to find these training manuals out in the world, which effectively means the only way to get better is to explore. I found this approach to open world progression super refreshing because it puts a premium on exploration, on fully exploring this map. But it also puts my attention fully on the story. I'm more focused on the narrative of the game instead of getting lost in gear systems that almost every single open world game these days has. Now, this could be unintentional, right? Maybe because this is Rebellion's first game of this kind, they didn't want to take too big a jump into the gear and looting and skill progression that this game could have had. But I'm choosing to see it as addition by subtraction. Less is more. And in this case, I think it absolutely works for Atomfall and it makes it different. Visually, I think this game is pretty solid, sometimes even gorgeous. Particularly when you step out into an open field and you get a wide view of the world. You can tell by some of the character models and the environment design that this was made by the same team that makes Sniper Elite. I'm pretty confident it uses the same in-house engine as well by the way that the animations look. To transition from that into a smaller scale but decently sized open world game is pretty impressive to me. I also think the art direction is solid. There's something haunting and mysterious about the rolling hills around Windscale. The interiors feel dark and dangerous. There's a lot of weird tech and strange science going on that reminds me of Fallout, BioShock, and even a little bit of Atomic Heart with the giant machines walking around. At times, I found myself wishing the character models and facial animations were better, considering you do spend some time in this game talking to characters. But again, this is their first attempt at a game of this kind, so I'm willing to see past that and hope that their next open world game focuses more on that. As you can tell, Atomfall made a pretty strong impression on me in the first parts of the game. I'm excited to uncover this mystery, to find the truth, and to escape the quarantine zone. And I think if you're at all someone who likes alternate history, post-apocalypse, or conspiracy-laden stories, Atomfall is right up your alley. It's a strong first open world game from this studio that does just enough to feel unique in an oversaturated genre. I ended up playing well past the point where they wanted me to hit in order to give, legitimate impressions on the game because I wanted to. And yeah, I'm excited to play more. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to hit that like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this and ring the bell so you don't miss my next one. Thanks again to Rebellion for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to uncover the mysteries of the Quarantine Zone and Atomfall on Game Pass, Xbox Series X and S and Xbox One, PS5 and PS4, and PC via Steam or Epic Games Store by using my links in the description or the pinned comment.